Jacob Thornton's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He stood in the freezing dark behind his wagon, watching through the gap in those rotting boards. Inside that leaning shack, a woman knelt on the floor dividing potato peels among 3 children like it was Sunday supper. Her voice came out bright as summer, while her hands trembled with hunger she pretended not to feel. "A fine meal for my fine children," she said. And something inside Jacob, something he'd kept buried since he lost everything, cracked wide open. If this story touches your heart, subscribe to our channel and stay until the end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The cold hit like a fist when Jacob Thornton stepped out of Brennan's Mercantile. His saddlebags hung heavy with supplies: flour, salt, coffee beans, bacon wrapped thick in butcher paper. Enough for one man living alone on 300 acres of nothing but silence. He'd come to town for provisions, nothing more. "Mr. Thornton." Jacob turned. Jim Brennan stood in the doorway, breath clouding white. "You forgot your change." "Keep it." "That's near $2, sir." "I said keep it." Jacob mounted his horse and didn't look back. $2 meant nothing to him. Money meant nothing. He had more than he could spend, and no one to spend it on. The ride home took him past the edge of town, past the good houses, with smoke curling from chimneys, past the church where he hadn't set foot in 3 years, past everything decent folks built when they still believed in building things. Then he saw the shack. He'd passed it 100 times, never stopped, never wondered who lived in that leaning pile of boards that looked one strong wind from collapse. But today, movement caught his eye through the gaps in the wall. Lamplight flickering, shadows shifting. Jacob reined his horse to a stop. He didn't mean to look, didn't mean to see, but he saw. A woman knelt on the bare floor, 3 children gathered close around a table made from apple crates. She wore a dress so faded the original color was just a memory. Dark hair pulled back, coming loose at the edges. Thin shoulders, thinner wrists. On a chipped tin plate before her lay scraps, potato peelings, bread heels hard as stone, bacon grease scraped from a cold pan. She divided these scraps with hands that moved careful, precise, the way a mother's hands move when there isn't enough, when there's never enough, when pretending there's enough is all she has left. "There now," she said, voice bright as summer, though Jacob could see her shoulders shaking. "A fine supper for my fine children." The oldest girl touched her mother's sleeve. "Mama, you ain't eating." "I had plenty earlier, sweet girl. This is all for you." Jacob's throat closed, his chest seized up. His hands gripped the reins until the leather bit into his palms. He knew that lie. He'd heard his own mother tell it winters, when there was nothing, when she went days without food so he could eat. He'd watched her smile while her body starved, watched her pretend while her hands shook. 30 years, and he still remembered. Now here it was again. Another mother, another lie, another family 1 bad week from dying. The youngest child, a boy maybe 4, swung his feet and grinned like this was Christmas morning. "Thank you, Mama. Potato peels is my favorite." Jacob backed his horse away slow. His saddlebags hung heavy. Her cupboard stood empty. He rode home as the sun bled out behind the hills, but he couldn't outrun what he'd seen. That night, Jacob sat at his dining table and stared at food he couldn't eat. Roasted chicken, fresh bread, preserved peaches in a china bowl. Mrs. Porter had outdone herself, same as always. Steam rose from the dishes, filling the room with smells that used to make his mouth water. All he saw was potato peels divided 3 ways. "Mr. Thornton." Mrs. Porter stood in the doorway, concern creasing her weathered face. "Chicken not to your liking. It's fine. You ain't touched it. I ain't hungry." She didn't argue. 5 years keeping house for a man who'd lost everything taught her when to push and when to let be. She gathered the dishes and left him alone in the big empty room. Jacob pushed back from the table. The house stretched around him. 8 rooms. Built them himself, every board, every nail. Proved everyone wrong who said a half-breed kid from nowhere would never amount to nothing. Made something from nothing. Filled his barns and his bank account. But the rooms stayed empty. No children's laughter. No woman's voice. No family gathered around this table that sat 12 and served 1. He walked to the window. Stars burned cold above his land. 300 acres. 600 head of cattle. More money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. And tonight, a mile away, a woman divided garbage so her children wouldn't starve. Morning came gray and cold. Jacob rode into town before the shops opened. Found Jim Brennan sweeping the boardwalk outside the Mercantile. "Mr. Thornton, twice in 2 days. Must be my lucky week. I got questions. I got answers, sometimes." Jacob dismounted, tied his horse to the rail. "That shack on the east edge of town. The one that's barely standing." Jim's face changed, something careful sliding into place. "What about it? Who lives there? Why you asking? Just answer the question." Jim leaned on his broom. "Ruth Winslow, widow. Moved here near 8 months back. Husband died in a lumber accident up north. She's got 3 young ones. Family nearby? None that I know of. She got work. Takes in washing when folks'll give it to her. Which ain't often. Proud woman that one. Won't take charity. Church ladies tried. She thanked them polite and sent them on their way." Jacob pulled out his wallet. "I want to open an account. For her. Anonymous." Jim's eyebrows shot up. "Now hold on. She can buy whatever she needs. Bill it to me. Tell her it's from the church fund or whatever lie you gotta tell. But she don't find out it's me. Ever." "Mr. Thornton, I can't just—" "How much you want? Name a number." Jim stared at him. "It ain't about money." "Everything's about money." "No, sir, it ain't." Jim shook his head. "That woman's got pride harder than iron. She finds out someone's paying her way, she'll stop coming in altogether. Then those children really will starve." The words hit Jacob like cold water. "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Don't rightly know, but charging in with your wallet ain't the answer." Jim scratched his chin. "She comes in sometimes, buys day-old bread, pays what she can, always counts out her coins careful, never asks for credit." Jacob stood there, fists clenched, feeling useless for the first time in 20 years. There's gotta be something. Maybe there is. Jim looked at him sideways. Maybe there's ways to help that don't look like helping, if a man was clever about it. By noon, Jacob had a plan. By nightfall, he had a basket. He filled it careful. Eggs packed in straw so none would crack. A 10-pound sack of flour. Bacon wrapped thick. Potatoes without soft spots. 2 cans of milk. Dried apples. A small sack of sugar that cost more than it should. No note. Nothing that might make her feel beholden. He rode out before dawn. Stars still burning overhead. Wind cutting sharp across the frozen ground. The town lay dark and quiet. No one stirred. No one watched. He approached Ruth's shack from the back where fewer eyes might see. Her chimney showed no smoke. She'd be sleeping still, conserving firewood, stretching every stick like she stretched every scrap of food. Jacob dismounted quiet. Set the basket on her doorstep. His hands shook. Not from cold, from something else. Something he couldn't name. Something that felt like hope, or maybe fear, or maybe the first real thing he'd let himself feel in 3 years. He retreated before light broke the horizon. The next morning he found the basket on his porch. Empty. Cleaned. The wicker gleaming like she'd scrubbed it. The cloth folded neat creases, sharp. No note. But tucked in the handle a single winter flower. Purple petals bright against brown wicker. She'd searched the creek banks, found something growing against the odds. Jacob pressed it between pages of his Bible. A week passed, then 2. Every morning before dawn, Jacob filled the basket, varied what he brought. Essentials always eggs, flour, bacon, milk. But other things too. A jar of honey, a tin of tea. One night when sleep wouldn't come, he carved a small wooden horse from cedar, sanded it smooth, left it nestled among the potatoes. The basket always came back empty, cleaned, ready, and every time some small sign of gratitude, a sprig of evergreen, a ribbon tied around the handle. Once a child's drawing a family of stick figures holding hands, the mother in the center with arms stretched wide. Jacob kept everything. The drawings went in his desk drawer, the ribbon in his coat pocket, the dried flowers in his Bible next to the first one. He started looking forward to mornings, started looking forward to something for the first time in 3 years. Sunday, he went to church. He'd stopped going after the funeral. Couldn't stand the pitying looks, the whispered condolences, the empty words about God's plan. But now he found a reason. Ruth sat in the back pew, children scrubbed and neat despite threadbare clothes. She held her head high, sang hymns in a voice clear as water, accepted no pity. Their eyes met across the congregation. Something passed between them. Jacob couldn't say what, but Ruth pressed her hand to her heart during silent prayer, and he knew she was praying for her unknown benefactor. After the service, he lingered outside. She walked past children close around her, didn't look at him, didn't know who he was. But the oldest girl, Emma, he'd learned her name from the church register, stopped and stared. "Mama, that's the man with the big ranch." Ruth turned. Her eyes met Jacob's again. "Good morning, Mr. Thornton." Her voice hit him like a physical force. Low, warm, tired, but unbowed. "Ma'am."
Shem.
He touched the brim of his hat. "Thornton. Jacob Thornton." "I know who you are." She gathered her children closer. "Everyone knows who you are. And you're Mrs. Winslow. Everyone knows that too." Something flickered in her eyes. Not quite suspicion, not quite trust. "Is there something you need, Mr. Thornton?" "No, ma'am. Just paying respects." She held his gaze a moment longer, searching. Then she nodded once and walked on, children trailing behind. Jacob watched her go. The youngest boy turned back and waved. Jacob waved back. And for a moment, just a moment, he felt like a man who belonged in the world again. But 3 weeks in, the trouble started. Jacob stood at the counter of Brennan's Mercantile paying for supplies he didn't need. Eggs, flour, bacon, sugar, the same order he'd been placing every few days. Mrs. Brennan watched from behind the register, eyes sharp. "That's a lot of food for one man, Mr. Thornton. Just stocking up. You've been stocking up considerable lately. Winter's coming on hard." "Is it?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Interesting how you've taken to buying day-old bread, too. Didn't think a man of your means would bother with day-old anything." Jacob kept his face neutral. "I like the texture." He paid and left without another word, but he knew. The whispers had started. By Thursday, half the town was talking. Dutch, his ranch foreman, pulled him aside while they mended fence. "Boss, there's talk." "There's always talk." "This is different." Dutch spat tobacco juice into the frozen mud. "The Brennan woman's been running her mouth. Says you've been buying supplies no bachelor needs. Folks are speculating." "Let them. Some say you've taken up with a woman in secret. Others say—" Dutch hesitated. "Others say you're helping that Winslow widow." Jacob drove a post into the ground with 3 hard strikes. "And if I am, it ain't my place to say, boss, but folks talk, and talk has a way of turning ugly." Sunday after church, Reverend Hayes intercepted him. "Mr. Thornton, a word." They stepped aside, away from the dispersing congregation. "I've heard certain rumors," the Reverend said, choosing words careful, "about you and Mrs. Winslow." "What about us?" "Is there an us?" I've never spoken more than 10 words to the woman. Yet you've been leaving provisions at her door every morning for 3 weeks. Jacob went still. Who told you that? It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is appearances. The Reverend folded his hands. A wealthy bachelor, a young widow, secret gifts. Surely you see how it looks. It looks like a man helping a family that's starving. It looks like something else entirely. And perception, Mr. Thornton, becomes reality in a town this size. The Reverend's voice softened. If you want to help the widow, do it through proper channels. The church board has funds. There are appropriate ways. Appropriate. Jacob's jaw tightened. Your church board met 3 times about Ruth Winslow. I checked. You voted twice against additional assistance, said she needed to show more effort to help herself. The Reverend's face reddened. That's there were considerations. She takes in washing. She sells bread when she can get flour to make it. She's worked harder than any woman I know, and your board decided she wasn't trying hard enough. Jacob stepped closer. So, forgive me, Reverend, if I don't trust your proper channels. He walked away before the conversation could continue, but the Reverend's words followed him home. That night, Jacob stood in his barn, holding the filled basket, and couldn't make himself move. The town's judgment pressed down like a physical weight. He could stop. Let the church board take over. Save his reputation. Or he could keep going and watch everything he'd built respect standing the name he'd made for himself burn. He thought about Ruth dividing scraps. Thought about his mother 30 years dead still smiling while she starved. Thought about the wooden horse he'd carved now clutched in a small boy's hands. To hell with them, he said to the empty barn. He saddled his horse and rode out into the dark. The next morning brought the coldest dawn of the season. Jacob approached Ruth's shack the same as always. Same route, same silence, same careful placement of the basket on her doorstep. But this time the door opened before he could turn away. Ruth stood in the threshold shawl wrapped tight against the cold bare feet on frozen boards. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Ruth said quiet, "It's you." Jacob couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't run. "It's been you all along." "Ma'am, don't," her voice cracked. "Don't ma'am me. Don't you dare." She stepped forward, took the basket from his hands, looked inside at the eggs, the flour, the bacon, the small sack of sugar. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Why?" she whispered. "Because I saw you. Through the wall. That first night." Jacob's voice came out rough, broken. "You were dividing scraps for your children and calling it supper. And I—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I couldn't look away. I couldn't forget. So you just decided to save us. Without asking. Without even telling me who you were. Would you have taken it if I'd asked?" Ruth's jaw tightened. "No. That's why I didn't ask." She stared at him, tears streaming, hands shaking around the basket handles. "I don't need your pity, Mr. Thornton." "It ain't pity." "Then what is it?" Jacob looked at her, this woman who'd taught her children that potato peels were a feast, who held her head high when the whole town judged her, who refused to break no matter how hard life pushed. "I don't know," he said, honest. "I don't know what it is. But I know I can't stop. I know that filling that basket every morning is the only thing that's made me feel human in 3 years. I know that—" He stopped. Footsteps. Behind them. Jacob turned. Mrs. Brennan stood at the corner of the shack, mouth hanging open. Behind her, 2 other women from church. Witnesses. "Well," Mrs. Brennan said, voice dripping satisfaction, "wait till the town hears about this." By noon, everyone knew. By evening, the judgment had already begun. And Ruth Winslow, standing in her doorway holding a basket of food she hadn't asked for, realized that accepting Jacob Thornton's help might cost her the only thing she had left: her reputation, her children's future, everything. Mrs. Brennan's voice cut through the frozen morning air like a blade. Jacob Thornton, at a widow's door before dawn, with a basket of provisions. She turned to the women behind her, triumph spreading across her face. Ladies, I believe we've found our mystery benefactor. Ruth stepped back, clutching the basket to her chest. Her face had gone pale. Her children appeared in the doorway behind her, eyes wide with confusion. Mama! Emma's voice trembled. What's happening? Get inside, sweet girl, all of you, now. The children retreated, but their faces remained pressed to the window watching. Jacob stepped forward, positioning himself between Ruth and the women. Mrs. Brennan, whatever you think you saw, I know what I saw. We all do. Mrs. Brennan's chin lifted. A respectable rancher sneaking around a widow's house in the dark, leaving gifts, meeting in secret. There's nothing secret about helping a family in need. Is that what you call it? Helping? The woman's laugh was sharp ugly. The whole town's been wondering where those baskets came from. Now we know. Ruth's voice came from behind him, steady, despite the tremor in her hands. Mr. Thornton has done nothing improper. He's been kind to my children. That's all. That's all. Mrs. Brennan repeated the words like they were poison. A man doesn't leave baskets at a woman's door for 3 weeks out of kindness, Mrs. Winslow. A man does that because he wants something. Jacob's fists clenched. Watch your tongue. Or what you'll have me thrown out of town. You might own half the county, Jacob Thornton, but you don't own people's opinions. She gathered her skirts. By noon, everyone will know exactly what kind of man you are, and what kind of woman she is. The women turned and left, their whispers already spreading like wildfire on dry grass. Ruth stood frozen in her doorway. Jacob turned to face her. Mrs. Winslow, you should go. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. Her voice cracked. You've been helping us. I'm grateful, but now... She pressed a hand to her mouth, fighting for control. Now my children will pay for that help. Do you understand? Every cruel word, every sideways look, every door that closes in their faces, that's the price of your kindness, Mr. Thornton. I never meant. I know you didn't. That's what makes it worse. She stepped back and closed the door. Jacob stood alone in the frozen morning, the sound of that door closing echoing in his chest like a gunshot. He rode home through streets already buzzing with whispers. Faces appeared in windows. Heads turned. By the time he reached his ranch, the damage was done. Dutch met him at the barn, face grim. I heard. News travels fast. Bad news travels faster. Dutch took the horse's reins. Mrs. Porter's inside. She's upset. The Reverend stopped by while you were gone. Left a message. What message? Said the church board's calling a special meeting. Tonight. About you and the Winslow woman. Jacob's jaw tightened. Let them meet. Boss. I said let them meet. I'll be there. He strode toward the house, leaving Dutch staring after him. Inside, Mrs. Porter stood at the kitchen counter, hands working bread dough with more force than necessary. You heard, Jacob said. Everyone's heard. She didn't look up. The whole town's talking about how Jacob Thornton's been keeping company with the widow Winslow. I haven't been keeping company. I've been leaving food. Same thing in people's minds. She slammed the dough against the counter. 3 years I've watched you hide away on this ranch, shutting out everyone who tried to help. And now this. This is how you decide to rejoin the world, by ruining a woman's reputation along with your own. I was trying to help her. Did you ask if she wanted your help? The question stopped him cold. Did you think about what it might cost her? A woman alone, 3 children, no protection. Mrs. Porter finally looked up, eyes bright with tears. You meant well, Jacob. I know you did, But good intentions don't feed children when the whole town turns against their mother. Jacob sank into a chair. What do I do? I don't know. But you'd better figure it out fast. Because right now Ruth Winslow is paying for your charity, and those children are paying with her. The church meeting convened at 7 o'clock. Jacob arrived early, taking a seat in the back pew. The sanctuary filled slowly, faces turning to stare as people recognized him. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through wheat. Reverend Hayes stood at the front, hands clasped, expression troubled. "We're here to discuss a matter of community concern," he began. "Recent events have come to light regarding Mr. Jacob Thornton and Mrs. Ruth Winslow." "We know what kind of events," someone called from the middle rows. "Please let's maintain order." Order. Mrs. Brennan rose from her seat. "This man has been sneaking around a widow's house for weeks, leaving gifts, meeting her in secret, and we're supposed to pretend it's innocent." "It was innocent," Jacob said, standing. "I saw her children going hungry. I had plenty. I shared. That's all." "That's all he says." Mrs. Brennan's laugh was bitter. "Then why hide it? Why sneak around before dawn? Why not just bring your charity in the daylight like a decent man?" "Because she wouldn't have taken it." "Oh, so you know her that well? Know what she would and wouldn't do?" "I know pride when I see it. I know a woman who'd rather starve than accept what she sees as pity. I was trying to help without shaming her. And instead, you've shamed her worse than poverty ever could." The words hit Jacob like a physical blow, because they were true. The door at the back of the church opened. Every head turned. Ruth Winslow stood in the doorway, chin high, back straight. She wore her best dress, faded but clean. Her children weren't with her. "Mrs. Winslow," the Reverend said, surprised. "We didn't expect—" "I know what you expected." Ruth walked down the aisle, every eye following her. "You expected to discuss my virtue and Mr. Thornton's intentions without giving either of us a chance to speak. This is a church board matter. This is my life, my children's lives. I have a right to be heard." She stopped at the front of the church, turning to face the congregation. "3 weeks ago, my children were starving. I had nothing. No money, no food, no hope." Her voice didn't waver. "I divided potato peels and called it dinner. I told my babies that scraps were a feast because I couldn't bear to tell them the truth." Silence fell heavy over the sanctuary. Then baskets started appearing at my door. Food, real food, eggs and flour and bacon, things my children hadn't tasted in months. Ruth's hands clenched at her sides. "I didn't know who was leaving them. I didn't ask, because for the first time since my husband died, my children went to bed with full bellies." She looked at Jacob. Something passed between them, something the whole congregation saw. "Mr. Thornton did what none of you did. He saw a family in need, and he helped. Not with committees and conditions and judgments about whether I deserved assistance. He just helped. And now you want to punish him for it? Punish me." Mrs. Brennan stood again. "It's not about punishment. It's about propriety." "Propriety." Ruth's voice went cold. "When my children were hungry, not one of you knocked on my door. When I came to this church begging for work, any work, I was told there was nothing available. When I applied for assistance from your charity fund, I was informed that I needed to demonstrate more effort to help myself." The Reverend's face reddened. There were considerations. There were excuses, because helping a widow and her children wasn't convenient, wasn't comfortable, wasn't proper. Ruth turned back to the congregation. "Mr. Thornton didn't ask what was proper. He saw hungry children and he fed them. If that's a sin, then I'll stand before God and defend him myself." She walked back up the aisle, pausing beside Jacob's pew. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." Then she was gone. Jacob didn't stay for the rest of the meeting. He followed Ruth outside, catching up with her in the churchyard. "Mrs. Winslow." "Ruth." She stopped walking, but didn't turn. "If we're going to be the scandal of the county, you might as well call me Ruth." Ruth. The name felt strange on his tongue. Right, but strange. "What you said in there." I meant every word. I know. That's why. He stopped struggling to find words. No one's ever defended me like that, not since my mother died. She turned then, and he saw tears on her cheeks. You defended me first, she said. Every morning for 3 weeks you defended my children against hunger, against despair, against the worst this world can throw at a family with nothing. Anyone would have. Anyone didn't. You did. She stepped closer. I don't care what they say about us, Mr. Thornton. I don't care what it costs. My children are alive and healthy because of you. Nothing else matters. Jacob's chest ached. It matters to me. What happens to you? To them? Why? The question hung between them. I don't know, he admitted. I've been asking myself that for weeks. Why I can't stop thinking about you. Why filling that basket is the only thing that makes me feel alive. Why? He stopped. Ruth waited. 3 years ago I lost my wife and daughter. Robbery gone wrong. I was sheriff then. I was supposed to protect them, and I failed. The words came out rough, broken. After that I stopped feeling anything. Built this ranch, made money, stayed alive. But I wasn't living, just existing. Ruth's hand found his. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. Then I saw you, Jacob continued, through the gap in those boards, dividing nothing into portions for 3. And something inside me, something I thought was dead, woke up. Jacob, I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to leave baskets in the dark and pretend I don't know you. I want. What do you want? He looked at her. This woman who'd stood before an entire town and defended him, who'd chosen his side when choosing his side cost everything. I want to help you openly. I want to know you. I want. His voice dropped. I want a chance, if you'll give me one. Ruth was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. If you stand with me, they'll destroy you. Everything you've built, everything you've earned, they'll take it all. The same people who smiled at you yesterday will spit on you tomorrow. Let them. You say that now. But when the invitations stop coming, when old friends cross the street to avoid you, when business partners back out of deals because they don't want to be associated with the man who ruined himself over a poor widow, then I'll know who my real friends are. Ruth shook her head, tears flowing freely now. You're a fool, Jacob Thornton. Probably, but I'm a fool who doesn't give a damn what this town thinks. He squeezed her hand. I only care what you think. She looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. I think you're the best man I've ever met, and the most stubborn. Stubborn's kept me alive this long. It'll have to keep both of us alive now. Ruth took a breath. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. No more sneaking around. No more secrets. You want to help my family. You do it in broad daylight where everyone can see. Agreed. And we go slow. I have children to think about. They've already lost one father. I won't let them get attached to someone who might leave. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. Ruth. Jacob's voice was firm. I'm not going anywhere. She studied his face, searching for doubt, for hesitation, finding none. Then come to supper tomorrow. Meet my children properly. Let them decide if they want you around. And if they don't, then we'll figure something else out. But they come first, always. Wouldn't have it any other way. They stood in the churchyard, hands still clasped, while inside the sanctuary, the good people of the town continued discussing their fate. Neither of them cared. The next evening, Jacob rode to Ruth's shack with his heart pounding harder than it had in any gunfight. He'd faced outlaws, faced down armed robbers, faced death itself without flinching. But the thought of 3 children deciding whether he was worthy of their mother terrified him. He knocked on the door. Footsteps shuffled inside. Emma opened it. The oldest. The suspicious one. She looked him up and down with eyes too old for her face. "Mama says you're eating with us. If that's all right." It's her house. She decides who comes in. Emma stepped back, not quite welcoming, not quite hostile. "Wipe your boots." Jacob wiped his boots. The inside of the shack was smaller than he remembered. One room for everything: cooking, eating, sleeping. But Ruth had made it shine. Every surface scrubbed, every item in its place. The table was set with 4 mismatched plates. 4. She'd counted him. "Mr. Thornton." Ruth emerged from behind a curtain, hair freshly brushed, cheeks flushed from cooking. "You're early." "Nervous." She smiled at that. "Sit. Children, come meet our guest properly." The younger two approached slow. The boy Thomas Jacob remembered hung back, thumb in his mouth. The little one Samuel came straight up and tugged Jacob's sleeve. "Are you the basket man?" Jacob knelt to his level. "I am." "You brung us eggs, and bacon, and that sugar what Mama made into treats." "I did." Samuel studied him with the frank assessment only children can manage. "You got a nice horse." "I got several." "Can I ride one?" "Samuel?" Ruth's voice was sharp. "It's all right." Jacob looked at the boy. "When your mama says it's okay, I'll teach you to ride." Samuel's face split into a grin. "Mama, can I? We'll see. Now sit down, all of you." Supper was simple stew made from vegetables. Jacob had provided bread baked from his flour. But Ruth served it like it was a feast, and maybe for this family it was. Emma ate in silence, watching Jacob's every move. Thomas wouldn't look at him at all. Only Samuel chattered freely, asking questions about horses and cattle and whether Jacob had ever shot a real outlaw. "A few," Jacob admitted. "Back when I was sheriff." Thomas's head snapped up. "You was a sheriff." It was the first words the boy had spoken directly to him. "For 12 years. Did you catch bad men?" "Tried to. Didn't always succeed." Thomas considered this. "My pa was strong. He worked in the lumber camps. He could lift logs bigger than me." "I bet he could. He's dead now." The words fell flat and hard. "I know. I'm sorry." "Are you gonna die too?" "Thomas." Ruth's face went pale. "Everyone dies," Jacob said quietly. "But I plan on sticking around for a good long while, if that's okay with you." Thomas stared at him. Something shifted in the boy's eyes. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of something. "Maybe," Thomas said. "We'll see." After supper, Ruth sent the children to bed. They disappeared behind the curtain that divided the sleeping area, though Jacob could hear them whispering. "They're talking about you," Ruth said, stacking dishes. "I figured. What do you think they're saying?" "Emma's probably listing all the reasons not to trust you. Thomas is asking if you really shot outlaws, and Samuel's planning which horse he wants to ride first." Jacob laughed. It surprised him. He hadn't laughed in so long he'd forgotten what it felt like. Ruth's hands stilled on the dishes. "That's a good sound." "What?" "Your laugh. I wasn't sure you knew how." "Neither was I." They stood in comfortable silence while Ruth finished cleaning. Jacob wanted to help, but sensed she needed to do something with her hands. Finally, she turned to face him. "They like you. Even Emma, though she'd die before admitting it." "How can you tell?" "Because Emma asked you questions. She doesn't talk to people she doesn't care about, just ignores them completely." Ruth dried her hands on a cloth. "You passed the first test, Mr. Thornton." "Jacob." "Jacob." She said it soft, like she was trying it out. "You passed the first test, but there will be more." "I'll pass those too." "You sound certain." "I am." Ruth stepped closer, close enough that he could smell soap on her skin, see the pulse jumping in her throat. Why are you so certain about us? You barely know me." "I know enough." "You know I'm poor. You know I have 3 children who depend on me. You know the whole town thinks I'm either a charity case or a fallen woman. What in that makes you certain about anything?" Jacob reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She shivered at his touch, but didn't pull away. "I know you fed your children scraps and called it a feast so they wouldn't feel the shame of being hungry. I know you stood in front of an entire congregation and defended a man you barely knew because he'd done right by your family. I know you've got more courage in your little finger than most men have in their whole bodies." His voice dropped. "And I know that when I'm with you, I feel like maybe there's a reason I survived when my wife and daughter didn't. Like maybe I was supposed to be here right now for you." Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "Jacob." A knock on the door shattered the moment. Both of them froze. "Ruth Winslow." A man's voice unfamiliar. "Open up, I know you're in there." Ruth's face went white. Her hand flew to her throat. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. Who is that?" But she didn't answer. She was backing away from the door, shaking her head, terror stark in her eyes. The knock came again, harder. "I've come a long way, Ruth. Don't make this difficult." Jacob stepped in front of her. "Who is he?" Ruth's voice came out strangled. "Victor, my husband's brother." She grabbed Jacob's arm, fingers digging in. "He's the reason we ran. The reason we came here." Her whole body was trembling. "He wants to take my children." The door shuddered under a third knock. "Last chance, Ruth. Open this door, or I'll open it myself." Jacob's hand moved to the gun at his hip. "Stay behind me," he said, "and don't say a word." He opened the door. The man on the threshold was tall, well-dressed with cold eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. "Well now," Victor Sullivan said, looking Jacob up and down. "I didn't realize my sister-in-law had found herself a protector. How interesting." Jacob didn't move from the doorway. "Whatever business you got with Mrs. Winslow, you can state it from out there. I don't conduct family business with strangers." Victor's smile widened. "Though I'm curious who you are. The local charity, or something more personal. That ain't your concern. Everything about Ruth is my concern. She's family. And those children in there." Victor's eyes flicked past Jacob, searching the room. "They're my brother's blood, my responsibility now." Ruth's voice came from behind Jacob, stronger than he expected. "They're my children, Victor. Not yours. Not ever. William is dead, and I know exactly what he would have wanted, which is why I took our children as far from you as I could get." Victor's mask slipped for just a moment, something ugly flashing in his eyes. "You've been filling their heads with lies about me, turning my own nephews and niece against their family. I've told them the truth. That's what terrifies you." Victor's gaze swung back to Jacob. "I don't know who you are, mister, but this doesn't involve you. Step aside and let me speak to my sister-in-law." Jacob didn't move. "Lady says you're not welcome. Seems pretty clear to me. And if I don't leave, then I make you leave." The two men stared at each other. Something silent passed between them, a recognition of what each was capable of, a calculation of odds. Finally, Victor smiled again, but this smile was different, colder. "This isn't over, Ruth. Those children belong with family, real family, not some stranger playing house with their mother." He straightened his coat. "I'll be staying in town, at the hotel. When you're ready to discuss this like reasonable adults, you know where to find me." He turned and walked away into the darkness. Jacob closed the door and slid the bolt home. When he turned, Ruth was on her knees on the floor, arms wrapped around herself, shaking. "He found us," she kept saying. "He found us. I thought we were safe. I thought—" Jacob knelt beside her, pulled her into his arms. She came willingly, pressing her face against his chest, sobs racking her body. "He can't have them," she gasped. "I won't let him. I'll die first. He's not taking anyone." Jacob's voice was steady, certain. Not while I'm breathing. You don't know what he's like. You don't know what he's capable of. Then tell me. Tell me everything. And there on the cold floor of her tiny shack with her children sleeping behind a thin curtain and danger circling closer, Ruth told Jacob the truth about Victor Sullivan, about the drinking, the violence, the way he'd looked at her even before William died, about the night he'd tried to force himself on her and she'd hit him with a fireplace poker, about the threats that came after, the promise that if she didn't marry him, he'd take her children and she'd never see them again, about running in the middle of the night with nothing but the clothes on their backs, traveling 200 miles to escape a man who'd sworn he'd find her wherever she went. Jacob listened to all of it, and when she finished trembling in his arms, he made her a promise. He won't touch you. He won't touch those children. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, I will keep you safe. Ruth looked up at him, tears streaming. Why would you risk everything for us? Jacob wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Because some things are worth risking everything for. And you, Ruth Winslow, are one of them. Ruth didn't sleep that night. Neither did Jacob. He stayed until dawn, sitting in a chair by the door with his hand on his gun, watching shadows move across the walls. Every creak of the old boards made Ruth flinch. Every gust of wind against the windows stopped her breath. The children slept through it all, innocent of the danger circling their home. When gray light finally seeped through the cracks, Jacob stood. I need to go into town, find out what Victor's planning. Ruth grabbed his arm. Don't. He's dangerous, Jacob. More dangerous than you know. I've dealt with dangerous men before. Not like him. Victor doesn't fight fair. He uses lawyers, lies, money. He'll destroy you without ever throwing a punch. Then I'll beat him at his own game. How? He's got resources. Connections. He's been planning this for months. Jacob cupped her face in his hands. And he doesn't know who he's dealing with. I'm not just some rancher, Ruth. I was sheriff for 12 years. I know the law. I know how men like Victor operate. That was before my family died. I know. His voice hardened. But the skills didn't die with them. And right now those skills are going to keep you and your children safe. He kissed her forehead, a brief, fierce press of his lips, and was gone before she could argue. The town was already buzzing when Jacob rode in. He could feel the stairs, hear the whispers. Word had spread about Victor Sullivan's arrival, about his claims, about his intentions. Jacob tied his horse outside the hotel and walked inside. The clerk looked up, face going pale. Mr. Thornton, can I help you? Victor Sullivan. What room? I can't just... Jacob slammed his hand on the counter. What? Room. 12, second floor, end of the hall. Jacob took the stairs 2 at a time. He didn't knock. He kicked the door open. Victor sat at a small desk, papers spread before him, coffee cup halfway to his lips. He didn't flinch. Well, the protector returns. Victor set down his cup with deliberate care. I wondered how long it would take. Let me be real clear. Jacob stepped into the room. You're going to leave this town. Today. You're going to forget Ruth Winslow exists. You're going to forget those children exist. And if I ever see your face again, I'll put you in the ground. Victor laughed. Actually, laughed. That's very dramatic, Mr. Thornton. Very frontier justice. He stood adjusting his vest. But we're not in the wilderness anymore. This is the civilized world. Laws, courts, due process. You threatening to take her to court? Threatening. Victor's eyebrows rose. I'm informing you of my intentions. Those children are my brother's blood. I have a responsibility to ensure they're raised properly. They're being raised fine. By a woman living in a shack, a woman who can barely feed them, a woman who's taken up with a stranger less than 2 years after her husband died. Victor shook his head. No judge will look at that situation and call it proper. Jacob's hands curled into fists. You touch those children, you die. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Victor pulled a paper from the stack on his desk. Violent threats, unstable behavior. A former sheriff who lost his own family and now attaches himself to vulnerable widows. He smiled. This practically writes itself. You don't know anything about me. I know everything about you, Jacob Thornton. Victor began reading from the paper. Sheriff of Willow Creek for 12 years. Wife Sarah, daughter Mary. Both killed during a bank robbery 18 months ago. You were present but failed to intervene in time. Resigned from your position shortly after. Retreated to your ranch and refused all social contact until recently, when you began secretly visiting a widow with 3 children. Jacob felt cold spreading through his chest. I have investigators, Mr. Thornton. Good ones. They've been very thorough. Victor set down the paper. How do you think it will look when I present this to a judge? A broken, isolated man with violent tendencies inserting himself into a vulnerable family's life. That's not what happened. What happened doesn't matter. What matters is the story. And right now, the story is this. Ruth Winslow abandoned her family, fled with her children, and took up with a mentally unstable rancher. Meanwhile, her husband's devoted brother has been searching desperately for his niece and nephews, wanting only to ensure their well-being. Victor's smile widened. Who do you think the judge will believe? Jacob wanted to kill him. The urge was so strong his hand moved toward his gun without conscious thought. Victor noticed. His smile didn't waver. Go ahead. Draw on me. Prove exactly what I've been saying about you. Jacob forced his hand back to his side. This isn't over. No, it isn't. It's just beginning. Victor gathered his papers. I'll be filing my petition with the territorial court tomorrow. Ruth will be summoned to appear within the week. I suggest she find herself a lawyer, though I doubt she can afford one. He walked past Jacob toward the door, pausing at the threshold. Oh, and Mr. Thornton. Stay away from my sister-in-law. Any further contact between you will only strengthen my case. He left. Jacob stood alone in the empty room, rage and fear warring in his chest. He rode back to Ruth's shack at a gallop. She was waiting on the porch, arms wrapped around herself, face tight with worry. What happened? What did he say? We need to talk. Inside. The children were at the table eating breakfast. Emma looked up when Jacob entered, suspicion sharpening to alarm at his expression. Mama, take your brothers outside, sweet girl. But, now Emma. The children filed out, glancing back with worried eyes. When the door closed, Ruth turned to Jacob. Tell me. He told her everything. The investigators, the petition, the court summons, the strategy Victor had outlined. Ruth's face went white, then gray. He's going to take them. No, he's not. You heard what he said. He's got lawyers. Money evidence. Evidence of what? That you're a good mother who fled an abusive situation, that you've done everything possible to provide for your children. Evidence that I'm poor, that I'm living in filth, that I've been... Her voice cracked. That I've been accepting gifts from a man who isn't my husband. Those gifts were food for your children. You think a judge will see it that way? You think he'll care about intentions? Ruth pressed her hands to her face. Victor's right. He's got the better story. Poor, concerned uncle trying to save children from poverty and scandal. Who wouldn't believe that? Jacob grabbed her wrists, pulled her hands away from her face. Listen to me. I'm not going to let him take your children. Whatever it costs, whatever I have to do, I will stop this. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Ruth stared at him, tears streaming. Why? Why do you care so much? You barely know us. I know enough. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. I know I haven't felt alive in 18 months until I met you. I know those children deserve better than Victor Sullivan. I know... He stopped, breathed deep. I know I love you, Ruth. I love you and I'm not losing you. Not to him, Not to anyone. She went still in his arms. You love me. I know it's too fast. I know it's crazy. But when I think about losing you... His voice roughened. I can't. I won't. Ruth pulled back just enough to look at his face. Her eyes searched his, looking for doubt, for deception. Finding neither. I love you too, she whispered. God help me, I love you too. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, fierce, the kiss of two people clinging to each other while the world tried to tear them apart. Ruth's hands fisted in his shirt. Jacob's fingers tangled in her hair. The door banged open. Mama, there's a man coming. They broke apart. Emma stood in the doorway, face flushed, eyes wide. A man in a fancy coat, with papers. Jacob moved to the window. A rider approached on the road, dust rising behind him. Go back inside, he told Ruth. Stay with the children. Jacob, I'll handle this. He stepped onto the porch as the rider dismounted. Jacob Thornton. Who's asking? I'm Deputy Marshal William Hayes. The man pulled a paper from his coat. I have a summons for Mrs. Ruth Winslow, ordering her to appear before the territorial court in 3 days to answer charges regarding the custody of her minor children. 3 days. Victor hadn't waited until tomorrow. He'd already filed. She's not here. Her children are inside, sir. I can see them through the window. The deputy held out the paper. I'm required to deliver this personally. If she refuses to accept it, I'll be forced to report her for contempt. Ruth appeared in the doorway. I'll take it. Ma'am. The deputy handed over the paper. You're required to appear at the territorial courthouse on Friday at 10 in the morning. Failure to appear will result in a default judgment against you. I understand. The deputy mounted his horse and rode away. Ruth stared at the paper in her hands. 3 days, she said. I have 3 days to find a lawyer, build a case, and convince a judge I'm not an unfit mother. We'll find a way. How? We don't have money for lawyers. We don't have evidence. We don't have anything. We have each other. Ruth laughed, but it was bitter. That's exactly what Victor wants them to think. The poor widow and her unstable protector against a respectable businessman with deep pockets. I'm not unstable. I know that, you know that, but the court doesn't know that. All they'll see is what Victor shows them. Jacob took the summons from her hands, read it carefully. This says you can bring witnesses, people who can testify to your character, who everyone in town thinks I'm either a charity case or a fallen woman. You heard what they said at the church meeting. Not everyone. Ruth's eyes narrowed. Who are you thinking of? Doc Harrison. He's treated your children. He can testify they're healthy, well cared for. Doc Harrison barely knows me. Then we'll find people who do. Jacob's mind was racing. What about the people you buy bread from, the woman at the laundry where you work, anyone who's seen you with your children? Jacob, none of those people will stand up in court for me, not against Victor, not against money. You don't know that. I know how this town works. I know what happens to women who make trouble. Ruth's voice went flat. My husband was the same way Victor is. Charming on the outside, vicious underneath. I spent 6 years watching people look the other way because he had money and connections. Jacob went still. William was like Victor. Where do you think Victor learned it? Ruth pulled away, arms wrapping around herself. The Sullivan brothers were raised to believe the world owed them whatever they wanted. William wanted me, so he took me. Made me believe he loved me until it was too late. Did he hurt you? Not the way Victor would have. William's cruelty was subtler. Isolation, control, making me feel worthless so I'd never leave. Her voice dropped. The night he died, I felt relief before I felt grief. What kind of wife feels relieved when her husband dies? The kind of wife who survived something terrible. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. And now his brother wants to take the only good things that came from that marriage, my children. The only reason I'm still alive. Jacob pulled her close again. He won't succeed. I swear it. You can't promise that. Watch me. The next 2 days blurred together in a frenzy of preparation. Jacob rode to every farm, every ranch, every home in a 20-mile radius, calling in favors, asking questions, building a picture of Ruth's life that showed the truth, a devoted mother doing everything in her power to care for her children. Doc Harrison agreed to testify. So did Jim Brennan from the Mercantile, who admitted he'd watched Ruth count every penny by, only the cheapest food, go without so her children could eat. Even Mrs. Porter stepped forward. "I've kept house for Mr. Thornton for 5 years," she told Jacob. "I've watched him change since he started helping that family. If Ruth Winslow is the woman who brought him back to life, then I'll say whatever the court needs to hear." But Victor wasn't idle either. Reports filtered back to Jacob. Victor had been visiting the church board members, the town council, anyone with influence. He'd been spreading his version of events: the concerned uncle, the unstable widow, the inappropriate relationship with the local rancher. By Thursday evening, Jacob didn't know which way the wind would blow. He sat on Ruth's porch, watching the children play in the last light of day. Emma was teaching Samuel to catch a ball. Thomas sat apart, carving a stick with a pocket knife Jacob had given him. Ruth emerged from the shack and sat beside him. "They don't know," she said quietly. "I haven't told them what's happening. Maybe that's for the best. Or maybe I'm just a coward." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "They've already lost so much. Their father, their home, their sense of safety. If they lose me too..." "They won't." "You keep saying that." "Because I keep meaning it." Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What if we ran?" Jacob looked at her. "What?" "We could leave tonight. Take the children. Go somewhere Victor would never find us. You'd be a fugitive. If they caught you, you'd never see those children again." "But if we stayed ahead of them?" "Ruth," Jacob took her face in his hands. "Running is what Victor expects. It's what he wants. The moment you run, you prove every terrible thing he's said about you. So what do I do? Walk into that courtroom tomorrow and watch him take my babies. You walk into that courtroom and you fight. You tell the truth. You show that judge exactly who you are, a mother who would die for her children. And if that's not enough," Jacob kissed her forehead, "then I'll find another way, whatever it takes." Emma appeared at the edge of the porch. "Mama, Samuel fell down." Ruth stood quickly. "Is he hurt?" "Just his knee. He's crying, though." Ruth hurried to Samuel, scooping him up, examining the scrape with gentle hands. Jacob watched her. The way she held her son, the way her voice softened, the way she made him laugh through his tears. No judge who saw this could think she was unfit. No court could watch this woman with her children and hand them over to Victor Sullivan. But courts didn't always see the truth. And money could blind even the clearest eyes. Tomorrow would tell. The morning of the hearing dawned cold and gray. Ruth dressed the children in their best clothes, threadbare but clean. She braided Emma's hair with shaking hands, made the boys stand still while she scrubbed imaginary dirt from their faces. Jacob arrived just after dawn. Ready. No. Ruth smoothed her dress. But I don't suppose that matters. They rode to town in Jacob's wagon, the children quiet and somber. Even Samuel seemed to sense the weight of the day. The courthouse was a modest building at the end of Main Street. People were already gathering outside, witnesses, onlookers, busybodies hoping for entertainment. Victor stood on the steps, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. "Ruth," he smiled as she approached. "I'm glad you decided to come. I was worried you might run." "I've got nothing to run from." "We'll let the judge decide that." Victor's eyes shifted to Jacob. "Mr. Thornton, I'm surprised to see you here. I thought I made it clear that your presence wouldn't help Ruth's case." "I go where I please." "Of course you do. The unhinged rancher doing whatever he wants." Victor turned to his lawyers. "Make note of that for the record." They entered the courthouse. The judge was a heavy-set man with white whiskers and tired eyes. He looked like he'd heard every sad story the territory had to offer, and stopped believing any of them long ago. "This is the matter of Sullivan versus Winslow," the clerk announced, "regarding custody of the minor children Emma Thomas and Samuel Winslow." Victor's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, my client comes before this court with a simple request that his brother's children be placed in a stable, prosperous home where they can receive the upbringing they deserve." The lawyer painted a picture. Victor as the devoted uncle, Ruth as the unstable widow who'd fled in the night, dragging her children into poverty. The inappropriate relationship with Jacob Thornton, the squalid living conditions, the uncertain future. Ruth sat rigid beside Jacob, hands clenched in her lap. "Your Honor," the lawyer concluded, "these children deserve better than what their mother can provide. Victor Sullivan offers them security education opportunity. All we ask is that this court consider their best interests." The judge turned to Ruth. "Mrs. Winslow, do you have representation?" She stood. "No, Your Honor. I couldn't afford a lawyer." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. "Very well. You may speak for yourself. Do you wish to respond to Mr. Sullivan's claims?" Ruth took a breath. "Everything his lawyer said is twisted. I didn't flee in the night because I was unstable. I fled because Victor Sullivan tried to force himself on me." Gasps from the gallery. Victor's face darkened. "That's a lie," he snapped. "Order." The judge's voice was sharp. "Mr. Sullivan, you'll have your chance to respond. Mrs. Winslow, continue." "My husband's brother made it clear that if I didn't marry him after William's death, he would take my children. He threatened me, cornered me, put his hands on me." Ruth's voice shook but didn't break. "I hit him with a fireplace poker and ran that same night." "Do you have any evidence of this assault?" "No, Your Honor. It was my word against his." "I see." The judge made a note. "And the claims about your living conditions?" "We live in a small home. It's not fancy. But my children are fed, clothed, and loved. I work every day to provide for them. With the help of Mr. Thornton, I understand." Ruth's chin lifted. "Mr. Thornton has been generous. He saw my children going hungry, and he helped. That's not inappropriate. That's Christian charity. Some might call it something else. Some might be wrong." The judge almost smiled. "Almost. Do you have witnesses who can speak to your character?" "I do, Your Honor." One by one they came forward. Doc Harrison testified that Ruth's children were healthy, well cared for, and clearly loved. Jim Brennan spoke of watching Ruth count pennies, sacrifice meals, do whatever it took to feed her family. Mrs. Porter described the change in Jacob since he'd met Ruth, how a broken man had found purpose again. Then Emma stepped forward. "I want to say something." The judge raised his eyebrows. "Young lady, this is a court of law." "I know what it is." Emma stood tall, 10 years old, and fierce as fire. "I know what Uncle Victor did too. I was there that night. I saw him grab my mama. I saw her hit him. I heard what he said he'd do to us if she didn't do what he wanted." The courtroom went silent. Victor shot to his feet. "She's lying. She's been coached. I'm not lying." Emma's voice rang clear. "You told Mama you'd take us away, and she'd never see us again. You said you'd make her sorry. You said—" "That's enough!" The judge's voice cut through the chaos. "Mr. Sullivan, sit down. Young lady, thank you for your testimony." Emma returned to her mother, chin trembling, but held high. Ruth pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. The judge was silent for a long moment, reviewing his notes. "This court will recess for 1 hour while I consider my decision." 1 hour. 60 minutes to decide the fate of 3 children. Jacob found Ruth in the hallway, surrounded by her children. She was holding it together by sheer will, but he could see the cracks forming. "You did well in there." "Did I? I couldn't tell." She pressed a hand to her stomach. "I feel like I'm going to be sick." "Mama." Samuel tugged her sleeve. Are we going home soon? Soon, baby. I hope. Thomas stood apart, face closed off, arms crossed. Jacob moved to stand beside him. You all right? I don't like him. Uncle Victor. Thomas's voice was flat. He used to look at Mama funny. Papa never saw it, but I did. Your papa didn't see a lot of things. I know. The boy looked up at Jacob. Are you going to let him take us? No. How do you know? Because I won't let it happen, whatever it takes. Thomas studied him for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Okay, I believe you. It was the first time the boy had trusted him with anything. The hour passed like years. When they returned to the courtroom, Victor was already seated, smug confidence radiating from every pore. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Be seated. He shuffled his papers, cleared his throat. I've heard compelling testimony from both sides. Mr. Sullivan presents a case of financial stability and family connection. Mrs. Winslow presents a case of maternal devotion and justified fear. He looked up. The testimony of the child Emma Winslow was particularly affecting. Children do not lie with such conviction unless they have witnessed something truly distressing. Victor's face went pale. However, the judge held up a hand. I cannot make a permanent custody determination based on one hearing. The allegations against Mr. Sullivan are serious but unproven. The concerns about Mrs. Winslow's living situation are legitimate but not disqualifying. Ruth's hand found Jacob's, squeezed tight. Therefore, I am ordering the following. The children will remain with their mother pending a full investigation. Mr. Sullivan will have no contact with the children until this matter is resolved. And Mrs. Winslow, the judge's eyes found hers. You have 30 days to demonstrate that you can provide stable housing and reliable income for your children. If you cannot meet these conditions by the next hearing, I will have no choice but to reconsider custody. He banged his gavel. Court is adjourned. Ruth sagged against Jacob. Relief and terror warred on her face. 30 days? She whispered. How am I supposed to find stable housing and income in 30 days? You won't have to find it. Jacob turned her to face him. You already have it. What do you mean? Marry me, Ruth. Today. Right now. His hands gripped her shoulders. My ranch has 8 rooms. I can provide for all of you. No judge in the territory would question your stability then. Jacob. I know it's fast. I know it's not how you imagined this. But I love you. I love those children. And I will spend the rest of my life proving it if you'll let me. Tears streamed down Ruth's face. You'd do that. Give up your freedom, your solitude, everything you've built for us. I'd give up everything for you. Don't you understand that yet? She stared at him. This man who'd left baskets at her door, who'd stood against the entire town, who'd faced down Victor without flinching. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes. I'll marry you. She laughed through her tears. God help me, yes. Jacob pulled her into his arms. Behind them, Emma grabbed her brother's hands. What's happening? Samuel asked. Mama's getting married, Thomas said slowly. To the basket man. Does that mean we get to keep the wooden horse? Emma almost smiled. I think it means we get to keep a lot more than that. Outside the courthouse, Victor Sullivan watched them emerge. His face was a mask of controlled fury. This isn't over, he said to his lawyer. Find something. Find anything. I don't care what it costs. Mr. Sullivan, the judge, was clear. The judge is a fool, and Jacob Thornton just made the biggest mistake of his life. Victor's eyes followed Ruth as she climbed into Jacob's wagon. 30 days. A lot can happen in 30 days. He turned and walked away, already planning. The wolves were still circling, and they were hungry. They married that same afternoon. Reverend Hayes performed the ceremony in the small church with only Mrs. Porter Doc Harrison and the 3 children as witnesses. No flowers, no fancy dress. Just Ruth in her best faded cotton, and Jacob in his work clothes standing before God and promising forever. Do you, Jacob Thornton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Ruth Winslow, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Ruth looked at Jacob, this stranger who'd become her salvation in a matter of weeks. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife. Jacob kissed her, quick and fierce, a promise sealed. Samuel tugged at Ruth's skirt. Does this mean we live with the horses now? It means we live with Mr. Thornton, sweet boy. Can I call him Papa? Jacob knelt to Samuel's level. You can call me whatever feels right. Papa Jacob. That works. Samuel threw his arms around Jacob's neck. Thomas hung back watching, but his eyes weren't as guarded as before. Emma stood beside her mother, hand clasped tight in Ruth's. Are we safe now, Mama? Ruth wished she could say yes. Wished she believed it. We're safer than we were. They rode to the ranch as the sun began its descent. The children's eyes grew wide as the house came into view, bigger than anything they'd imagined, with real glass windows and a porch that wrapped around two sides. This is ours, Thomas whispered. This is home, Jacob said. Mrs. Porter had prepared supper. Real food, more than the children had seen in months. They ate until their bellies rounded, then fell asleep in beds with actual mattresses, too exhausted and overwhelmed to stay awake. Ruth stood in the doorway of their room watching them sleep. They look peaceful, Jacob said softly behind her. First time in months. She turned to face him. I keep waiting to wake up, waiting for this to be a dream. It's not a dream. How do you know? Because my dreams were never this good. He pulled her close. Come to bed, Mrs. Thornton. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She went. Morning brought reality crashing back. Dutch rode up to the house before dawn, face grim. Jacob met him on the porch. Trouble, boss. What kind? The kind with money and lawyers. Dutch spat tobacco juice. Victor Sullivan's been busy. He's been buying up your loans. Jacob went cold. What loans? The ones from the bank. The expansion you did 3 years back, the cattle you bought on credit. Sullivan's been in town for less than a week, and he's already got paper on near half your operation. That's not possible. Those loans are with First National in Denver. We're with First National. Word is Sullivan's got connections there. Deep ones. Dutch shook his head. He's calling them due, boss. All of them. By end of week. Ruth appeared in the doorway. Jacob, what's wrong? He didn't answer. Couldn't find the words. Dutch filled the silence. Sullivan's trying to bankrupt him, ma'am. Take the ranch, take everything. Figure if he can't get to you through the courts, he'll destroy the man who's protecting you. Ruth's hand flew to her mouth. No, this is my fault. All of this... Stop. Jacob's voice was sharp. None of this is your fault. This is Victor Sullivan being exactly who he is. But if you hadn't helped me, then 3 children would still be starving and I'd still be dead inside. I don't regret a single thing. He turned to Dutch. How much does he hold? Near $15,000, due Friday. 15,000. Jacob had money, but not that much liquid. Not without selling cattle at a loss, not without gutting everything he'd built. I need to go to town, talk to the bank. Jacob. Ruth grabbed his arm. Take me with you. Stay here with the children. Keep them safe. They're safe with Mrs. Porter. I'm not letting you face this alone. He looked at her, this woman who'd married him hours ago, who'd bound her fate to his without hesitation. All right, Dutch saddle 2 horses. The ride to town was silent. Jacob's mind raced through options, calculating assets, weighing possibilities. The ranch was worth 5 times what he owed, but land didn't convert to cash quickly. Not in winter. Not in this economy. Ruth rode beside him, face set. There has to be another way. If there is, I'll find it. What if you can't? Then I'll find something else. He looked at her. I didn't survive losing my family to lose everything again. Not now. Not when I finally have something worth fighting for. The bank was a small brick building on Main Street. Jacob pushed through the doors with Ruth behind him. The manager, a balding man named Crawford, looked up with an expression that mixed guilt and fear. Mr. Thornton, I was expecting you. Then you know why I'm here. The loans. Yes. Crawford shuffled papers on his desk. I'm afraid my hands are tied. Mr. Sullivan purchased them legally. He has every right to call them due. Every right, maybe. But we both know this isn't about money. This is about him trying to destroy me to get to my wife. Crawford's eyes flicked to Ruth. Mrs. Thornton, I heard about the wedding. Congratulations. Don't. Ruth's voice was ice. Don't pretend you're not part of this. I'm not part of anything, ma'am. I'm just following the law. The law. Jacob slammed his hands on the desk. Victor Sullivan threatened my wife, tried to assault her, tried to steal her children, and now he's using your bank to finish the job. I can't speak to Mr. Sullivan's personal conduct. I can only tell you that the loans are legally due by Friday. And if I can't pay... Crawford's silence was answer enough. Jacob leaned closer. You've known me 15 years, Crawford. You know I'm good for the money. You know I've never missed a payment. All I'm asking for is time. It's not my decision anymore. Then whose decision is it? Mr. Sullivan's. The name hung in the air like poison. Jacob straightened. Where is he? I don't think that's wise. Where is he? The hotel. Same room as before. Jacob turned and walked out. Ruth followed. What are you going to do? Something I should have done days ago. He didn't knock this time either. Victor stood by the window watching them approach. He smiled when Jacob kicked the door open. Mr. and Mrs. Thornton, how delightful. I heard about the wedding. Very romantic, very desperate. Call off the loans. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll kill you. Victor's smile didn't waver. There it is, the famous Thornton temper. Tell me, is that what happened to your first wife? Did your temper get the better of you then too? Jacob moved so fast Ruth barely saw it. One moment he was by the door. The next he had Victor by the throat pinned against the wall. Say her name again, I dare you. Victor's face went red but his smile remained. You're proving my point. Unstable. Violent. Exactly what I've been telling everyone. Jacob! Ruth's voice cut through the rage. Let him go! He doesn't deserve to breathe. Maybe not, but if you kill him, you'll hang. And then Victor wins anyway. She stepped closer. Let him go. Please. Long seconds passed. Jacob's hands shook with the effort of restraint. Finally, he released Victor, stepping back. Victor rubbed his throat, still smiling. Smart woman. Smarter than you deserve. What do you want? Ruth asked. What will it take to make you leave us alone? You know what I want. The children. The children. And you. Jacob lunged again, but Ruth caught his arm. That's never going to happen, she said. Those children are mine. They will never belong to you. Then your husband loses everything. His ranch, his cattle, his precious reputation. Victor straightened his collar. The choice is yours, Ruth. Come back to Denver with me, bring the children, and I'll tear up every loan I hold. Jacob keeps his ranch. Everyone wins. Except my wife. Jacob's voice was deadly quiet. Except the children who'll grow up with a monster. Monster? Victor laughed. I'm offering to save your ranch. I'm offering to provide for those children better than you ever could. How does that make me a monster? Because I know what you really want, Ruth said. I know what you tried to do that night. I know what you'll do to me once you have me back under your control. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. And so does Emma. She told the whole courtroom what she saw. Victor's smile finally cracked. That child is a liar. That child is braver than you'll ever be. Something ugly flashed in Victor's eyes. You're making a mistake, Ruth. Both of you are. I've been patient. I've been reasonable, but my patience is running out. So is mine. Jacob stepped forward. You have until sundown to leave this town. After that, I can't guarantee your safety. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Victor held Jacob's gaze for a long moment. Then he laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Sundown. How very frontier of you. He moved toward the door. Fine. I'll leave. But remember, I hold your debts. I hold your future. And when Friday comes and you can't pay, I'll own everything you have. He walked out. Ruth sagged against Jacob. What are we going to do? I don't know. But we have 4 days to figure it out. They returned to the ranch to find chaos. Mrs. Porter met them at the door, face white with fear. The children are gone. Ruth's heart stopped. What? They were playing outside. I turned my back for 1 minute, and when I looked again, they'd vanished. Jacob was already moving. Which direction? I don't know. I've been searching. Dutch. Jacob's voice thundered across the yard. Get every man! Spread out! Find those children! Ruth ran past him, screaming names. Emma, Thomas, Samuel. Nothing. Silence. Empty fields stretching in every direction. He took them. Ruth grabbed Jacob's arm. Victor took them. He couldn't have. He was with us. Then he had someone else do it. Her voice broke. My babies. He has my babies. Jacob's mind raced. Victor had been at the hotel. But that didn't mean he'd been working alone. Dutch, send someone to the hotel. Find out if Sullivan left town. Already on it, boss. Jacob pulled Ruth close. We'll find them. I swear to God we'll find them. If he hurts them, he won't. He needs them alive. They're his leverage. That doesn't make me feel better. It didn't make Jacob feel better either. 20 minutes later, Dutch rode back at a gallop. Sullivan's gone. Checked out an hour ago. Headed east on the main road. How long ago did the children disappear? Maybe 30 minutes before you got back. Jacob did the math. An hour head start. But Victor was in a carriage and Jacob had fast horses. Saddle Thunder. And bring rifles. Jacob, let me come. No. He gripped Ruth's shoulders. Stay here. If this is a trap, if something goes wrong, those children need at least one parent left. I can't just wait. You have to. For them. He kissed her hard. I'll bring them back. I promise. He rode out with Dutch and 2 other men, pushing the horses as fast as they could go. The main road east wound through open country, then into hills. Victor's carriage would be slow on the rougher terrain. They might catch him before nightfall. They might. An hour into the chase, Dutch pointed ahead. Tracks, fresh ones, carriage wheels. How far? Maybe 2 miles. They're not moving fast. Jacob urged his horse faster. The sun was sinking when they spotted the carriage. It sat abandoned on the side of the road, horses still hitched, stamping nervously. Jacob dismounted with his rifle raised. Victor. No answer. He approached the carriage slow, peered inside. Empty. Boss, over here. Dutch stood at the edge of the road, pointing to footprints in the mud. Small ones. They went into the trees. Someone's carrying the little one. See how the prints are deeper. Jacob followed the trail into the forest. The light was fading fast. Shadows stretched long between the pines. Every snap of a twig made him flinch. Then he heard it. A child crying. Samuel! Jacob moved toward the sound. Emma Thomas. Papa Jacob. Samuel's voice thin with fear. Papa Jacob, help! He broke into a run. Found them in a clearing. All 3 children huddled together against a fallen log. A man stood over them. Not Victor. Someone else. A hired thug with a gun in his hand. That's far enough, Thornton. Jacob stopped. Let them go. Can't do that. Mr. Sullivan's paying good money for these brats. Sullivan's not here. He will be. Told me to keep them safe until he arranges transport back to Denver. You're not taking these children anywhere. The man raised his gun. I got 3 bullets. You got a rifle. You're fast. Maybe you hit me before I hit them. You willing to risk it? Jacob's blood ran cold. What do you want? Already told you, I want to get paid. You want to outbid Sullivan, we can talk. How much? $1,000. Cash. I don't have $1,000 on me. Then we wait for Sullivan. Emma's voice cut through the standoff. He's lying. The man spun toward her. Shut up, girl. He's lying, Emma repeated louder. Uncle Victor isn't coming back. He told this man to take us to Denver himself. I heard them talking. The thug's face twisted. I said shut up. He never finished. Jacob moved. 1 shot. The rifle kicked against his shoulder. The thug dropped. Jacob ran to the children, gathering all 3 in his arms. They clung to him, sobbing, shaking. It's okay. You're safe. You're safe now. I was so scared, Samuel wailed. I know, son. I know. I tried to fight. Thomas's voice was small. I tried, but he was too big. You were brave. All of you were brave. Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. Is he dead? Jacob looked at the man on the ground. Blood pooled beneath him, dark in the fading light. Yes. Good. Emma's voice was hard as stone. He deserved it. Jacob didn't disagree. They rode back to the ranch in darkness. Ruth was waiting on the porch. She screamed when she saw them running across the yard, pulling the children from the horses, clutching them so tight they squeaked in protest. My babies. My babies. Are you hurt? Did he hurt you? We're okay, Mama. Emma's voice was muffled against Ruth's chest. Papa Jacob saved us. Papa Jacob. The words hit him like a blow. Ruth looked up at him, tears streaming. You brought them back. I told you I would. She stood, children still clinging to her, and crossed to where he sat on his horse. She reached up, pulled his face down to hers, and kissed him. Thank you, she whispered against his lips. Thank you. They got the children inside, fed them, held them, listened to their fragmented account of what had happened, the strange man who'd grabbed them, the long ride in the carriage, the terrifying walk into the forest. Uncle Victor wasn't there, Emma said. He sent that man to do his dirty work. That sounds like Victor. Ruth stroked her daughter's hair. Always letting others take the risks. Where is he now? Jacob asked. Don't know. His man said something about meeting on the Denver road, but after Emma told them, she heard everything. Dutch shook his head. I think Sullivan panicked, probably halfway to Colorado by now. He'll be back, Ruth said quietly. He doesn't give up. Then we'll be ready. But the immediate crisis wasn't over. Friday was still coming. The loans were still due, and Jacob was still $15,000 short. That night, after the children finally slept, Jacob sat at his desk, staring at numbers that refused to add up. Ruth found him there near midnight. Come to bed. Can't sleep. Can't or won't. Both. He rubbed his eyes. I keep running the numbers. Even if I sell half the herd at a loss, I'm still short. And if I can't pay by Friday, then we lose the ranch. Then we lose everything I built. Ruth sat in the chair across from him. Jacob, look at me. He looked. 3 days ago I had nothing, a shack, scraps, terror. She reached across the desk and took his hands. Now I have a husband who would kill for my children, who rode into darkness to bring them home, who married me to keep us safe. Ruth. I don't care about the ranch. I don't care about money. I care about you, about us, about this family we're building. Her grip tightened. If we lose this house, we'll find another. If we lose the cattle, we'll raise more. But if we lose each other, that's never happening. Then nothing else matters. Jacob stared at her. This woman who'd survived so much, lost so much, and still found the strength to hold him up when he was drowning. I don't deserve you. Probably not. She smiled, but it was tender. But you're stuck with me now. For better or worse? Currently worse. Currently challenging. There's a difference. He laughed despite himself. A knock at the door made them both jump. Jacob grabbed his rifle. Stay here. He crossed to the door, opened it cautiously. Doc Harrison stood on the porch, breathless. Jacob, thank God you're still awake. Doc, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Something's right. The old man was grinning. I've been digging through records all day. Legal documents, property transfers, anything I could find about Victor Sullivan. And I found something. Doc pulled a folded paper from his coat. Victor's not who he claims to be. He's not William Sullivan's brother. Jacob felt the world tilt. What? William Sullivan was an only child. I found his birth records, his family history. There was no brother. Victor Sullivan is a fraud. Ruth appeared behind Jacob. That's impossible. William talked about his brother all the time. His business partner, maybe. His friend. But not his brother. Doc thrust the paper forward. This changes everything. If Victor has no blood claim to those children, his whole case falls apart. Jacob grabbed the document, scanning it rapidly. Does this mean? It means Victor Sullivan has no legal standing, no right to those children, no grounds for any petition. Doc's grin widened. He's finished. Ruth sank against the doorframe. Oh my God. There's more. Doc's expression sobered. If he's been presenting himself as William's brother under false pretenses, that's fraud. Maybe more. He could go to prison. Jacob looked at Ruth, saw hope dawning in her eyes for the first time in days. We need to get this to the judge. First thing tomorrow. Already arranged. Doc nodded. I sent word tonight. Judge is expecting us at 9. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Ruth started to laugh and cry. Both at once, tears streaming down her face as her shoulders shook. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. Jacob pulled her into his arms. Not yet, he said. But soon. Very soon. They didn't sleep that night. But for the first time since Victor Sullivan had walked back into their lives, it wasn't from fear. It was from hope. The courthouse was packed when they arrived. Word had spread overnight. The whole town knew that Jacob Thornton had shot a man to rescue the Winslow children. Knew that Victor Sullivan had fled. Knew that something big was about to happen. Jacob walked in with Ruth on his arm, the 3 children following close behind. He felt the weight of every stare, heard the whispers ripple through the crowd. That's him. The one who killed Sullivan's man. Heard he rode through the night to save those kids. Look at her. The widow. She's his wife now. Ruth's grip tightened on his arm. Ignore them. I always do. Judge Morrison sat behind his bench, expression unreadable. Doc Harrison stood near the front, clutching his bundle of documents. All rise. Everyone stood. This court is now in session. We are here to address new evidence in the matter of Sullivan versus Winslow. The judge looked at Doc Harrison. Dr. Harrison, you claim to have information relevant to this case. I do, Your Honor. Doc stepped forward. Information that proves Victor Sullivan has been perpetrating a fraud upon this court. Murmurs swept through the gallery. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. Doc laid his documents on the bench. Birth records from Denver, church registries, census data, all confirming that William Sullivan, deceased husband of Ruth Winslow, was an only child. The judge's eyebrows rose. No siblings. None, Your Honor. Victor Sullivan is not and has never been William Sullivan's brother. His entire claim to those children is based on a lie. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Order! Order in this court! Ruth squeezed Jacob's hand so tight, her knuckles went white. Is this really happening? It's happening. The judge examined the documents, turning pages slowly. His expression shifted from skepticism to surprise to something that might have been satisfaction. These appear to be authentic. They are your honor. I obtained them through official channels. And where is Mr. Sullivan now? Fled, Your Honor. Jacob stepped forward. After he arranged the kidnapping of my wife's children, one of his hired men is dead, the other escaped. You have proof of this. I have 3 witnesses, Emma Thomas and Samuel Thornton. They were taken against their will and held at gunpoint until I tracked them down. The judge turned to Emma. Young lady, is this true? Emma stood straight, chin high. Yes, sir. A man grabbed us while we were playing, said Uncle Victor was paying him to take us to Denver. But Papa Jacob found us and saved us. Papa Jacob? My stepfather. He married my mama to protect us. The judge was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer. I've been a judge for 23 years. I've seen a lot of people claim to act in children's best interests while serving only themselves. He looked at Jacob. But I've rarely seen a man marry a woman he barely knew, risk his life riding into darkness and kill, to protect children who aren't his blood. They're mine now, Jacob said. Blood or not. So I see. The judge gathered the documents. Based on this evidence, I am dismissing all claims by Victor Sullivan. Furthermore, I am issuing a warrant for his arrest on charges of fraud, attempted kidnapping, and conspiracy. Ruth let out a sob. The children will remain with their mother and stepfather. This case is closed. The gavel fell like thunder. Court is adjourned. The gallery burst into chaos. Voices raised, people pushing forward, questions shouted from all directions. But Jacob didn't hear any of it. He was holding Ruth. While she wept against his chest, the children wrapped around them both. It's over, Ruth kept saying. It's really over. Almost. Jacob pulled back, wiping tears from her cheeks. We still have the loans. Friday's still coming. I don't care about the loans. You might when we're living in a tent. She laughed through her tears. I've lived in worse. The crowd pressed closer. Hands reached out to pat Jacob's shoulder, to touch Ruth's arm. The same people who'd gossiped and judged were now offering congratulations. Mrs. Brennan appeared, face flushed. Mr. Thornton, Mrs. Thornton, I want to apologize. I said some terrible things. Yes, you did. Ruth's voice was steady. But today isn't about the past. Today is about moving forward. Mrs. Brennan nodded, looking chastened. If there's anything I can do. There isn't, but thank you for asking. They made their way outside, children in tow. Doc Harrison caught up with them. Jacob, wait. Doc, I don't know how to thank you. Then don't. Just listen. The old man was breathing hard, excitement flushing his cheeks. There's more. I didn't want to say anything in court until I was sure, but... Sure about what? Victor Sullivan isn't just a fraud. He's wanted in 3 territories. Jacob went still. What? Real name's Victor Marlowe, con artist, swindler. Been running schemes like this for years, finding widows claiming to be relatives, stealing their assets and their children. Doc shook his head. He's good at it too. Moves from place to place, changes his name, leaves a trail of ruined families behind him. How did you find this out? Sent some telegrams after I found the birth records. Got responses this morning. Doc pulled out more papers. There's a reward, Jacob, $2,000, for information leading to his capture. $2,000. Not enough to cover the loans, but it was something. He's gone, Jacob said. Ran after the kidnapping failed. Maybe not as far as you think. Doc lowered his voice. I got word he was seen this morning. At the train station in Cedar Falls. That's only 20 miles east. Jacob's heart hammered. You're sure? Sure as I can be. The telegrapher recognized his description. Jacob turned to Ruth. Stay here with the children. Jacob, no. I have to finish this. As long as he's free, we're never safe. None of us. Then let the law handle it. The law's too slow. He'll be gone before they get there. Jacob gripped her shoulders. I'll be back by nightfall, I promise. Ruth stared at him, fear and understanding warring in her eyes. You come back to me, Jacob Thornton. You hear me? You come back. Wild horses couldn't stop me. He kissed her hard, fast, fierce. Then he was gone. The ride to Cedar Falls took 2 hours at full gallop. Jacob pushed his horse until foam flecked its sides, until his own lungs burned from the cold air. Every minute mattered. Every second brought Victor closer to escape. The train station was a small, wooden building at the edge of town. A locomotive sat on the tracks, steam hissing from its stack. Jacob dismounted before his horse fully stopped. The Denver train. He grabbed the station master's arm. Has it left? Boarding now. Leaves in 10 minutes. Jacob ran. He crashed through the station doors, scanning faces. Businessmen, families, cowboys heading home. There. Victor stood near the last car ticket and hand carpetbag at his feet. He looked up as Jacob approached, and his face went pale. Thornton. Marlowe. Victor's expression flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. I don't know what you're talking about. Save it. I know who you are. I know what you've done. I know about the other families, the other widows, the other children. You don't know anything. I know there's a $2,000 reward for your capture, and I know you're not getting on that train. Victor's hand moved toward his coat. Don't. Jacob's voice was ice. I killed one of your men last night. Don't make me kill you too. You won't shoot me in front of all these people. Won't I? They stared at each other. The platform had gone quiet. People backed away, sensing violence in the air. It's over, Victor. Or Marlowe. Or whatever your name really is. Jacob stepped closer. You can come with me peacefully, or you can come with a bullet in your leg. Your choice. Victor's jaw worked. His hand hovered near his coat. Those children should have been mine. They were never yours to take. Ruth could have lived like a queen. I would have given her everything. You would have given her hell, same as you gave all the others. Jacob's voice hardened. How many families have you destroyed? How many widows have you conned? How many children have you stolen? I never stole anyone. I provided for them, educated them, gave them opportunities their worthless mothers never could. You're a monster. I'm a businessman. Victor's smile returned, but it was brittle. And businessmen know when to cut their losses. His hand darted into his coat. Jacob moved faster. The shot echoed across the platform. People screamed. Someone fainted. Victor crumpled, clutching his leg. You shot me. His voice was high with disbelief. You actually shot me. I warned you. Jacob kicked the fallen pistol away from Victor's reach. Be grateful I aimed low. The station master ran up, face white. What in God's name? This man is Victor Marlowe, wanted in 3 territories for fraud and kidnapping. Jacob pulled out Doc's papers. Send for the marshal. I'll wait. The marshal arrived within the hour. He recognized Victor immediately. Well, well. Victor Marlowe, we've been looking for you for a long time. Victor said nothing. His face had gone gray with pain and defeat. 2,000 reward, the marshal said to Jacob. You'll have it by week's end. Make it 3 days. I've got loans coming due. I'll see what I can do. They loaded Victor into a wagon, hands bound, leg roughly bandaged. As they prepared to leave, he looked at Jacob one last time. You think you've won? I have won. Ruth will tire of you. They always do. When she realizes what she's married a broken man with a dead family and nothing to offer, she'll leave. No. Jacob leaned close. She won't. Because I'm not offering her money or status or a name. I'm offering her love. Real love. The kind you'll never understand. He straightened. Enjoy prison, Marlowe. I hear Colorado winters are harsh. The wagon rolled away. Jacob stood on the platform until it disappeared from sight. Then he mounted his horse and rode home. Ruth was waiting on the porch when he returned. She ran to meet him, throwing herself into his arms before he'd fully dismounted. "You're hurt." Her hands found a cut on his cheek he hadn't even noticed. "There's blood." "Not mine. Not much of it anyway." "Victor. In custody. Heading to Denver for trial." Jacob held her tight. "It's done. Really done this time." Ruth pulled back, searching his face. "You're sure he can't come back? Can't hurt us again?" "He's going to prison for a long time. Multiple territories want him. By the time he gets out, if he ever gets out, our children will be grown with families of their own." "Our children." The words hung between them. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "Say that again." "Our children." "One more time." "Our children, Ruth. Yours and mine. Forever." She kissed him then, right there in the yard with the afternoon sun warming their backs and the whole world watching. When they finally broke apart, Emma stood on the porch. "Is it over?" "It's over, sweet girl. Really over. He's not coming back. He's never coming back." Emma's composure cracked. The fierce, protective older sister who'd held her family together crumbled into a crying child. Jacob caught her as she ran into his arms. "I was so scared," she sobbed. "I tried to be brave, but I was so scared." "You were the bravest person I've ever known." Jacob held her tight. "You stood up in court. You told the truth. You saved your family. You saved us. We saved each other." Thomas and Samuel appeared, drawn by the commotion. Samuel immediately climbed Jacob's leg like a tree. "Papa." "Jacob, did you get the bad man?" "I got him." "Did you shoot him?" "Samuel?" Ruth's voice was sharp. "Just a little bit," Jacob admitted. Samuel's eyes went wide with admiration. Thomas tried to maintain his usual reserve, but a smile tugged at his lips. "That's pretty good," Thomas said. "Thanks. I thought so too." They walked inside together. All 5 of them. A family. The reward money arrived 3 days later, $2,000 in cash delivered by a deputy marshal. Jacob sat at his desk, staring at the bills. Ruth found him there that evening. "What's wrong?" "It's not enough." "What do you mean?" "The loans. I owe $15,000. This covers maybe a quarter." Ruth sat in the chair across from him. "What happens if you can't pay?" "Sullivan Marlowe still owns the paper. With him in prison, I don't know who it transfers to. His creditors, maybe. The bank that sold him the loans in the first place." Jacob rubbed his eyes. "We might still lose everything." Ruth was quiet for a moment. Then, "Can I show you something?" She left the room and returned carrying a small tin box. Jacob had never seen it before. "My husband wasn't kind to me, but he wasn't stupid either." Ruth opened the box. He knew Victor Marlowe, whatever his name was, knew what he was capable of. So he hid things. Important things. She pulled out a stack of papers, certificates, bonds, legal documents. "William made investments before he died, told me they were worthless, but I never believed him. After he was gone, I found this box hidden in the floorboards." Jacob took the papers, hands trembling. Mining shares, railroad bonds, land deeds from 3 different territories. "Ruth, do you know what these are worth?" "No. I never had anyone I trusted to help me find out." Jacob did the calculations in his head, then did them again. 20,000, at least, maybe more. Ruth's face went white. "What?" "Your husband left you a fortune. He just didn't want you to know about it." But I was starving. My children were eating scraps. If I'd known..." "He counted on you not knowing." Jacob set down the papers. "Men like William don't share power, don't share money. He wanted you dependent, wanted you helpless." even after he was dead. Especially after he was dead. If Victor had gotten his hands on you on the children, he would have found these eventually. He would have taken everything. Ruth stared at the papers like they were snakes. I don't want it. It feels dirty. Blood money. It's not blood money. It's your children's inheritance. Their father owed them that much at least. But, Ruth. Jacob took her hands. This isn't about William. This isn't about what he did or didn't do. This is about Emma going to college if she wants. About Thomas having opportunities. About Samuel never knowing what it feels like to go to bed hungry. Tears slipped down Ruth's cheeks. I never wanted his money. I know, but you can use it to build something good. Something he never could have imagined. Ruth looked at the papers for a long time. Then she gathered them up and handed them to Jacob. You handle it. I can't. Are you sure? I'm sure. She met his eyes. I trust you. With this. With everything. Jacob pulled her close. We'll pay off the loans. Set up accounts for the children. Build something real. Something lasting. Together. Together. The next week passed in a blur of paperwork and legal proceedings. Jacob cashed the bonds, paid the loans, burned the notes Victor Marlowe had used to threaten them. Doc Harrison helped navigate the legal maze, ensuring everything was done properly. By the time it was finished, the ranch was free and clear. The children had trust funds that would see them through adulthood. And Ruth Thornton was no longer a penniless widow, but a woman of means. How does it feel? Jacob asked her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Strange. Wrong. Ruth leaned against him. I keep waiting for someone to take it away. No one's taking anything. Not ever again. Promise. Promise. Emma appeared in the doorway. Mama Samuel won't take his bath. Tell him no supper until he does. I told him. He said he'd rather starve. Then he'll starve clean. Go get him. Emma disappeared, and moments later, Samuel's outraged protests echoed through the house. Jacob laughed. Never a dull moment. Is that a complaint? It's the opposite of a complaint. He pulled Ruth closer. 3 months ago, I was living alone in this house, dead inside, just waiting to die. Now I've got a wife, 3 children, and a 4-year-old who'd rather starve than bathe. Having second thoughts. Not even for a second. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky darkened from orange to purple to deep blue. Jacob. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. That first night through the boards of that shack. Most people would have looked away, would have pretended not to notice. I couldn't look away. Why not? Jacob thought about it. Really thought. Because I recognized you. Not your face, I didn't know you then. But I recognized something. The way you were fighting. The way you refused to let poverty steal your children's joy. He turned to look at her. My mother was like that. Fed me scraps and called them feasts. Worked herself to bone so I could eat. She sounds like a good woman. She was the best woman I ever knew. Until you. Ruth's eyes glistened. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. I mean every word. Footsteps thundered inside. Samuel burst onto the porch, dripping wet, completely naked, Mrs. Porter chasing behind him with a towel. Samuel Thornton, you get back here this instant. Can't catch me. He ran circles around Jacob's chair, giggling hysterically. Jacob snagged him mid-lap, lifting him high. Gotcha. No fair. You're too big. Life's not fair. Learn it now. Save yourself trouble later. Jacob handed him to Mrs. Porter. Get him dry and dressed, and give him extra dessert. Extra dessert, after this behavior. He earned it. Takes courage to run naked through a house full of people. Mrs. Porter huffed, but carried Samuel inside, muttering about soft-hearted ranchers and spoiled children. Ruth was smiling. You're going to ruin them. Probably. They'll be spoiled rotten. Almost certainly. I love you." The words came out easy, natural, like she'd been saying them for years. "I love you too," Jacob said. "More than I ever thought I could love anything again." Spring came early that year. The snow melted. The creek ran high. Grass pushed up green through the brown, and the first wildflowers dotted the hillsides. Ruth planted a garden outside the kitchen window, vegetables and herbs and flowers in neat rows. The children helped, more hindrance than assistance, but she didn't mind. This was what family looked like: messy, chaotic, perfect. Jacob taught Thomas to ride. Really ride, not just sitting on a gentle horse, but galloping across open land with the wind in his face. The boy had a natural gift, fearless and sure. "He's good," Dutch observed one afternoon. "He's better than good. He's got a horseman's hands." "Takes after his stepfather." Jacob smiled at that. Emma threw herself into books. The small library Jacob had accumulated over the years became her sanctuary. She read everything: history, science, novels, poetry. "She could go to one of those fancy schools out east," Mrs. Porter said, "smart as she is. If that's what she wants." Jacob watched Emma through the window, curled in a chair, with a book twice her size. Whatever she wants, she'll have. Samuel remained Samuel, wild, joyful, exhausting. He talked to the horses like they were people, named every chicken in the coop, and still occasionally ran through the house naked when bath time came around. "He'll settle down eventually," Ruth said one evening as they watched him chase fireflies in the yard. "Will he? God, I hope not." They laughed together, easy and warm. The final hearing came in May. Judge Morrison officially closed the case, declaring Ruth Thornton the sole legal guardian of her children. Victor Marlowe's claims were rejected in their entirety, his fraud exposed in public record. "Mrs. Thornton," the judge said as they prepared to leave, "I want you to know something. Your Honor, in all my years on this bench, I've rarely seen a mother fight harder for her children, or a man step up more completely for a family that wasn't his by blood." He looked at Jacob. "You've both shown what courage really means. Not the absence of fear, but action in spite of it." "Thank you, Your Honor." "Don't thank me. Just raise those children right. Show them what love looks like." They walked out of the courthouse into bright spring sunshine. Emma took Ruth's hand. Thomas walked beside Jacob. Samuel rode on Jacob's shoulders, pointing at everything, asking endless questions. "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Now we go home," Ruth said. And then we live, sweet girl. We just live." That night, after the children were asleep, Jacob and Ruth sat on the porch in the cool darkness. Stars spread across the sky like scattered diamonds. "A year ago," Jacob said quietly, "I was sitting in this exact spot alone, wishing I was dead." Ruth's hand found his. "And now I can't imagine anything but this. You. The children. This life we're building. It almost didn't happen. But it did. Because you saw me through a broken wall. Because you were strong enough to save." Ruth leaned her head against his shoulder. "I wasn't strong. I was desperate." "Same thing sometimes." Silence stretched between them, comfortable and complete. "Jacob. If you could go back, change anything, would you?" He thought about it. Really thought. No. Not even losing Sarah and Mary. The names still hurt. Would always hurt, but differently now. "If that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been here. Wouldn't have seen you that night. Wouldn't have—" He stopped, collected himself. "I'll never stop loving them. Never stop missing them. But their deaths led me to you. To the children. To this. That seems like a terrible trade. Maybe. Or maybe it's just life, breaking us apart and putting us back together in new shapes." Ruth was quiet for a long moment. "I like our shape," she finally said. "So do I." They sat together as the night deepened and the stars wheeled overhead. Inside the house, their children slept safe and warm. The ranch stretched around them solid and real. And the basket that had started everything, the simple wicker basket that Jacob had filled with eggs and flour and desperate hope, sat on a shelf in the kitchen, cleaned and polished. Ruth had insisted on keeping it. "Why?" Jacob had asked. "Because it reminds me that sometimes salvation comes in unexpected packages, that kindness given in secret can change everything, that love finds a way even through the darkest nights." She was right, of course. She usually was. Jacob pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. This was his life now. Not the one he'd planned, not the one he'd lost. Something new. Something built from the ashes of grief and the stubborn refusal to let hope die. The empty rooms of his house were full now. The silence had been replaced by laughter, and the lonely rancher who'd left baskets in the darkness had found what he never dared to search for: a family, a future, a love worth every risk he'd taken to protect it. Ruth shifted in his arms, already half asleep. "Jacob, yes. Come to bed. In a minute. You always say that. And I always come to bed eventually." "True." She smiled without opening her eyes. "I love you." "I love you too." She stood, kissed his forehead, and went inside. Jacob sat a moment longer, looking out at the land he'd built and the life he'd found. Then he stood, walked through the door his wife had left open for him, and closed it gently behind him. The porch light burned warm against the darkness, and inside the Thornton house where love had made a home, a family slept in peace. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one ended with something better, something real, a beginning.